If the Cubs asked you for permission to talk to Joe, would you let them?
I wouldn't comment. I'm not going to, I wouldn't comment.
And then if that's the, let's say if you were not to, then they would not have permission to talk to him, of course, till November 1st. Are you concerned at all about the managerial, spot, being in question that long?
Well, it's in question right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
my point is that if you don't give them permission, then Joe could wait till November, decide to, and hold off things because he wants to talk to another team or other opportunities. If you give him permission now, it pushes the ball a little quicker.
Well, I think my conversations, it's harder for me to answer that because ultimately, clearly it'll depend on my dialogue with Joe Girardi, with Steve Mandel, and Hal Steinbrenner, and Randy Levine. And that kind of, I think, will dictate the pace of a deal getting done quickly or a deal not getting done at all. But, that'll, I won't say officially start tomorrow, but most importantly, we'll pick up tomorrow because I'll be talking to Steve directly. I've had my conversations with Joe already. And now I'll be dealing with his representative, Steve, which I've done before. And I think after tomorrow, I'll get a real good feel for where we're at.
Mark, back to the right. George, sorry.
Brian, how would you evaluate how the organization has drafted and developed talent recently, and do you expect any organizational changes with either of those facets?
In terms of changes, I mean, we're always looking at that type of stuff. So if we have changes to make, we'll make them and then deal with them. We have struggled out of the draft here in the last number of years. Some of it's signability, whether it was Garrett Cole. Some of it was injuries, like last year's number 1 pick and Ty Hensley having double hip surgery, so he hasn't even been available to us. Some of it, are, picks that haven't panned out. I think this past year we did really well. But in fairness, you always feel that when you make those selections. So we're evaluating that as well. I think we're obviously started at top to bottom. We typically do it every 3 years. And this past year we started, maybe 2 months ago, going through the process of evaluating the decision-making process and the expected value from where you pick in the draft and comparisons to other organizations. And you try to determine what is accurate and true and what is actually, not as accurate, and it's more perception. So first and foremost, we're going through that process, and but yeah, we haven't had as fruitful of results from the draft here recently as we had hoped and anticipated. And in terms of development, we've had guys that, I think 3 years ago we were ranked in the top 7 in farm systems in the game. In the last 2 years, our players have either got injured that have taken them out. Manny Banuelos, for instance, an example that we missed all last year because of Tommy John. Or we've had guys go backwards where, like Adelin Betances, for instance, was considered a potential high-end starter and has now been converted to the bullpen. Because of the failure there to finishing it off at AAA, and then he'll be competing for a spot out of the bullpen next year as he's out of options. So those are examples of injuries, performance going backwards, or unexpected return. So.
Who has a mic? Bruce, right in the front.
Brian, how vital is keeping Cano, but at what cost?
We'd love to have Robbie back. Not much more for me to say about that. But our intention is to have him back if we can. He'll, receive without question. Will receive or has received whatever significant offer to stay, and so he'll have something legitimately to ponder. And we'll have to again play that one out as well, see where it takes us. So he's been a great Yankee. I think if he stays, he has a legitimate chance to experience what you just saw, for instance, a little bit from Mariano, where he, maybe has a chance to be the first Dominican-born player to be in Monument Park, homegrown Yankee, and but at the same time, it's a business, and he has, comported himself in a tremendous way, both on and off the field with the New York Yankees, and we've been extremely happy to have him. We hope to extend that relationship. But we have a process to still go to on that, and he will certainly be in a position to entertain offers from other clubs while we go through that process.
Marley, second row, middle. Cash.
Cash, how abreast will you be kept on Alex's proceedings with MLB? And are you already operating under the assumption that he will not be here for a certain period of time next year?
I operate on the assumption that I have him until they tell me otherwise. I'm not really in a position to talk about the Alex stuff. We're not a party to it. I know that, from the media reports it's supposed to start yesterday, and then for a while there until I looked on Twitter and saw certain things about people coming and going, I wasn't even sure if it actually had started yesterday or not, because that's how out of the loop I am on it. So there's not much to say on it because, again, at this stage I'm not a participant in any way to that.
Eric, front row, right. Cash.
Cash, the indications you've gotten from ownership, are they still as committed to the $189 million threshold as spring training and, before that?
Well, I think Hal Steinbrenner on 2 occasions has had a chance to try to articulate his feelings on the 189, which is certainly a byproduct on the new basic agreement, and I can restate what he has told me, but I also know what he's told you, at least our press corps, on 2 different occasions. It's certainly a goal. It's not a mandate. It's a goal that we have, if it's possible, that there's a lot of benefits to staying under that, but it's not a mandate if it's at the expense of a championship run. So it just depends on what the opportunities are before us and the costs associated with it, and if the feelings are that if we don't do something, it'll prevent us from taking a run, and then I think his commentary that he's made already on 2 occasions in the owners' meetings as well as spring training is it's a goal, not a mandate. So we'll operate as we look at the goal, but every option, every opportunity that comes my way via trade, free agency, I will always present to my owner and team president for evaluation. We will provide recommendations. They will provide their thoughts and what we should do in the end and the final call on whatever it's going to be done. So it's a goal, but not a mandate.
And just a not related follow-up, but the situation with the coaching staff, are they all free agents, and do you want all the coaches back?
They're not technically free agents until October 31, and if Girardi comes back, then yes, I would like to have our coaches back, and I believe Joe feels the same way. But ultimately, because the way the process needs to work, the manager has to get decided first, so you can then focus on the coaches and so the intent is if Joe's back, I think, unless something changes in those conversations with him, that the entire staff is the interest would be to have them back too. Then you have negotiations and various personal interests as well come into play. So there's no guarantees on any level, but I thought the staff did a great job, and I have praise for every single one of those guys. So.
Steve.
Brian, how much will the decision on Alex affect your flexibility this offseason to sign players? And if it drags out throughout the fall, will it hurt you guys to make decisions going forward?
It's not something that's in our control, so I'm not focused on it. I have Alex plugged in unless I'm told something different. And so there's nothing really else for me to say to that.
Who else? Andrew and then Ron.
Brian, on Derek, what are your expectations for him for next year? And what's your expectations first?
Well, certainly hope to get Derek back, to the Derek that we're all used to. He's one of those guys that did everything in his power to fight through something that turned out to be pretty significant, and so now he'll have some time to, back off, get some rest, some more flexibility back, and get every aspect of that ankle in line, as far as the kinetic chain. And so it'll put him in a position to have the typical training regimen that he was used to as he prepares for the season. He'll be able to do that. And then the expectation is when that happens and does occur, that he can put significant distance to what we just saw and lived through with him together the last year, where obviously it was something that was really limiting him to be the player he's capable of being again. So,
and do you think, Joe's moved towards this, but does he need the DH more, and would you consider him at any other positions that might be easier on his legs and his body?
I think, the options really for him are shortstop and DH, and I think the DH spot is utilized like it is for all our other guys too, for rest. It's one of those things where, hey, we just can't run somebody in the ground, but hey, your bat's too important to not have you in the lineup at the same time. So on a given day, as we were planning to do this year against a left-handed pitcher, if it gives us a chance to rest him, but just give him 4 at bats so we can benefit from having the bat, then DH spot, depending on how the roster is constructed, would be available. And I think, that was the plan this year, and it would benefit him as well as whether it was Alex or Euclid if he was healthy. There was going to be a situation with Teixeira and all those guys that would be utilized as a choice to give somebody a breather but still maintain the offense. That's our hope and expectation as we move forward into next year.
Ron, middle.
How much of the power drop this year do you think was caused by injuries and how much by roster turnover? And do you have to address regaining some of those home runs as you work your way through the offseason?
It was definitely significantly affected by injuries. I mean, we knew we were going to lose Alex. We signed Euclid to replace Alex to give us cover until Alex came back. Then Euclid went down. Teixeira unexpectedly went down. Granderson unexpectedly went down twice. I mean, that's a lot of home runs to be running out of your lineup or losing from your lineup. And no matter how many waiver claims or trades we could have come up with, it was all just trying to cushion a blow. But it's not easy to find power out there, especially at the time of year. And then Hafner obviously went down, and so injuries took a significant portion of our power out. We did obviously transition from Russell Martin with his power bat to catchers that weren't going to produce power, so that was predictable. Our power was going to be down as we entered the process, but then it really took a hit when all those guys got hurt. So, the players I like to gravitate to clearly are on-base percentage. I was taught by Gene Michael, and it's the guys that they're selective at the plate, and they can beat you with their bat. With the long ball, I love the big long ball. Stick. Always kind of believed in the older Weaver way, and that's what I was taught and raised in. And so the players I typically gravitate to are those type of guys. And it certainly was hard to find those type of guys on the run, I think, as the roster choices as we went from March on, trying to cushion blows. It wasn't, it's not easy to find power guys as much as maybe in years past. As certainly it wasn't easy for us to plug the holes. So I was unable to do that, or failed my efforts to get that done. And power is a big piece of this franchise, and that's something I believe in.